There's two very important aspects of application security that I want to talk about here because you really need to understand the difference between the two. And the first one is going to be authentication, and the second one is authorization. Now, it's very important that you understand what authentication is and what authorization is. It's very simple, but you really have to understand it. So what is authentication? So authentication is really validating your credential. It just verifies that you are who you say you are. So if you want to access an application, the application needs to know who you are. And you know, example of that could be giving you like a login form or some other different ways to just get your credentials and then verify who you are as a user. So that's what authentication is. Like, you provide your username, for instance, and your password, and then they authenticate you. They say, okay, this is user X or user Y. So that's what authentication is. Now, for authorization happens after authentication. So after you've been authenticated and you access the application, now the application needs to know what you have access to and what you can do. So there's going to be decisions to determine if you have permission to access certain resource or not. And that's what authorization means. Authorization is once you're inside the application, then what are you allowed to do, to what extent you can access certain resource and things like that. And you know, example of this can be just using access control lists. Like, for instance, you can access an application, but then if you try to access some admin page, it tells you that the application can tell you that you don't have authorization. So that's what authorization is. It's just determine what resource you can access or to what extent you can access certain things or do certain things in the application. Again, just to recap, authentication verifies who you are, like your credential, make sure they're valid and you are who you say you are. And authorization happens after you've been authenticated, and it determines what you have access to, what resource you can access, and to what extent you can access certain things. And we will see this more in practice once we start building the application. You will see that you know, for certain users, even though they can all access the application, but they can't see all the same things, they can't do the same things, and you'll see that in practice it will make a lot of sense.